Please subscribe to our channel on Apple Podcasts, Immigrantly, Uninterrupted. You can subscribe for as little as $34.99 for the entire year or $3.99 a month. And yes, you will get ad-free episodes. But honestly, this isn't really about skipping ads. It's about supporting independent media and conversations that don't always have a neat little box to live in. The kind of conversations where we talk about life, identity, culture, dating, relationships, all the messy, but real stuff. So think of it like this. If you've ever listened to an episode of Lovely while you're on a walk, you're in the car, or maybe even after a bad date thinking, okay, wow, I really needed to hear that. This is how you help keep those conversations going. So if Lovely has ever made you feel seen, challenged your thinking, or expanded the narrative around all those things, subscribing is one way you can support the show. If you enjoy the conversations we're having, subscribe to Immigrantly Uninterrupted and help us keep building this on our terms. And once you do, send me a message on Instagram. I'd love to know.
Good sleep is everything. That's why Ollie's Science Back Support is made with a blend of melatonin and L-theanine for both kiddos and grown-ups. So when your mind won't switch off, you've got something that can help. Your racing thoughts and restless nights won't stand a chance. Find Ollie Sleep Solutions for the whole family at ollie.com. That's OLLY.com.
Hello, and welcome back to Lovely. This is your host, Mahek. I feel like I need to start this episode with a little bit of what's going on in my life, what's going on in my brain. Not much to update from a dating standpoint, but, kind of what's been going on is my brain has been doing backflips, and I feel like I've been trying to focus every part of my life at the same time, right? So thinking about my career, thinking about content, thinking about dating, thinking about fitness, also trying to find a hobby. And I think this past weekend, I kind of just hit a point where I was like, okay, I actually can't do all of this at once. So right now, to see the best results, I'm forcing myself to pick two things and just be disciplined about that, which is focusing on work and working out. So dating is definitely on the back burner, and we'll figure that out later. Also, summer is coming. I don't think it's the time to get into a new relationship. You want to be out and about with the girls, enjoying whatever you want to do, and not really thinking about, carving out time to spend with someone else, because that's kind of what you do in a new relationship. What else happened this weekend? Ooh, Coachella happened this weekend. I definitely have some thoughts. I was at my friend's and we were watching the live stream. And, weekend one, pretty solid headliner, Sabrina Carpenter, Justin Bieber. It was like Bieberchella after all.
Let's go. Coachella.
And then we had the amazing Karol G. All in all, I think the internet is pretty noisy right now in terms of how much they liked certain celebrities' sets. I think my feedback for Justin Bieber is I'm a big fan, right? Like, I'm a believer, okay? I stayed up pretty late waiting for him to come. And I do want to empathize and recognize how far he's come in his healing journey, because the industry was not good to him. And definitely it was so nice to see him be happier, be healthier. The performance, just the level of performance that he put on, I didn't like it. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, it was nostalgic. It was more chill. It was more vibey. My thing is Coachella is not a casual hangout. It is a career-defining performance. Headliners are expected to deliver production, perform full songs, and make the set cohesive, just like Sabrina Carpenter did, just like Beyonce did, just like Lady Gaga did, just like Karol G did. They've done it. And I just feel like people that are saying, oh, it's nostalgic, he wanted to bring us all in, you can still do that but make sure that you have planned it out. You have thoughtfully curated it for your audience that have lined up since morning and paid thousands of dollars to come see you. And nostalgia isn't a substitute for effort, right? Which is my argument. Another argument that I always have, and I think the internet is reacting to this too, is we are picking and choosing who is allowed to underperform. I think if a woman did this, she would be ripped to shreds. Because what's expected of women is to deliver near perfection for the set to even be considered decent. And I don't like the narrative that he's being excused, you know? And I think the standards are different and I don't appreciate that. And mind you, he was also the highest paid person in Coachella ever. I think a lot of people saying, oh, he couldn't perform his songs because he sold his catalog. First of all, you chose to sell your catalog. Second of all, you're performing at a live venue. So no matter who owns the catalogs, you are still able to sing your songs. He just didn't want them to get money. Anyways, but if you have thoughts, send me a message, send me a DM. So if you've been keeping up with Lovely lately, you know we have been deep in conversations about immigrant parents, family expectations, and just the weight of growing up in a household where love and shame sometimes feels similar. And I felt like it was the perfect time to bring back a previous episode of Lovely because honestly, it does hit different now. You know, as I was doing this episode with Shazmeera, there's a lot of things that were resonating, but I was also projecting from my own experience. But I also think I see the other side of it too. Everyone is making mistakes. Everyone is doing things for the first time. So there are pros and cons to decentering your parents, but also giving them the grace that they were doing the best that they could do as well. So today's episode, like I said, is an interview with Shazmeera Qadri back in September 2025. She is a confidence coach based just outside of Toronto, and she came on to talk about her journey growing up as a Pakistani immigrant, going through an arranged marriage, an abusive relationship, losing everything in 2022, and then completely rebuilding her life on her own terms. And like I said, she talks about decentering your parents, what healthy love looks like, and something she calls cohort dating, which I still think about all the time. So this episode is for anyone who has ever made a decision out of shame instead of choice. I hope you enjoy. Shazmeera, welcome to Lovely. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. How are you?
I'm good. Oh my God, I'm so excited to have you because it's kind of surreal because I've seen you on TikTok and I reached out to you. I'm like, hey, I need to have you on Lovely. So where are you joining us from today?
So I live in a small town near Toronto called Grimsby, Canada. So I'm in Ontario, Canada.
Stop. Wait, you're in Canada or Toronto?
Yeah.
I'm from Toronto.
Oh, nice. Well, I'm actually further from Toronto. So I don't know if you've been to
I've been to Grimsby. I was with someone for 5 years that lived in Grimsby. So I'm very familiar with that area. I used to be there all the time.
I actually grew up in Brampton. And anyone who's in the Toronto area knows all about Brampton. So I grew up there for majority of my life. And then I had moved to live in Etobicoke while I was married. And then after that ended, I actually moved here to Grimsby to find a little bit of peace and quiet. And this is where I actually live with my partner now. And we live right by the water. We go for our walks and it's a beautiful, quaint life here.
Oh my God, I love it. I'm going to get all into it about your relationship status, learning more about your partner, and also the work that you do. But every time I have a guest on Lovely, I love to start off with what's their connection to immigrant identity. So let's start there. I want to know your connection, your upbringing, and kind of what's led you to be the woman that you are today.
Oh, I love this question. I always love it because I actually am an immigrant myself. So I was born in Pakistan and then I came here when I was 7 years old, probably 6 years old, turning 7. And I was raised in Canada my whole life. And I actually never went back to Pakistan. I still have never been back to Pakistan. And I think it's just never really had the chance. And I think for me, the interest is not there so much, that connection, because I feel like who I am as a person, I found my people, I found all that. So I definitely want to go back and travel, but for no other reason than that. And so my background is that legally speaking, I'm an immigrant and citizen, but I think in terms of the identity to being an immigrant, I don't personally hold any of that, just because I live my life very according to my terms and my values. And that is way different than, what my culture and what people expect immigrants in Canada to be like. I'm not really like that. So I grew up from a very humble beginning, like all immigrants start off. And, I have my mom's a single parent, and I have two other sisters, and we're all overachievers, as all children of immigrants and all immigrant children are. And, but we've really come to learn the life of what it means to really appreciate being in a country like this, where, a household full of women that wouldn't go so far in Pakistan, I would say, but we've gone really far in Canada. I don't take any day for granted. Every day is a blessed opportunity for me to live my life and fulfill my purpose, to be honest.
Yeah. And I think this is another reason why I was so drawn to you is I think we have very, very similar upbringing. So I'm also from Pakistan. I also moved to the States when I was 6, 7. I am like the only girl in my family, like honestly, in my entire lineage that is like, I'm going to have a career of my own. I am going to live on my own. My mom knows I'm bringing home a white guy. Like she just knows, like that's just like who I date, the track record shows. So no, look, I really want to get into that. But something that stuck with me is you said, you are immigrant by identity, but you don't really resonate with that side just because you've chosen to live life on your own terms. What does living life on your own terms look like growing up and also now?
Living life on my own terms didn't really exist, if I'm being honest. And when I was a kid, like when you're kind of new into the country, you're broke. Like your family's broke, and coming from a single parent household, like we didn't have the privilege of choice. I always say, like, for me, a privilege like that I saw in other families was like having that like silver fridge. And we had a white refrigerator at home, and I was always like, oh my gosh, that fridge that gave water from the outside. I don't know if it's like a big deal or not, but for me, I have that.
Yes. Or like pumping ice and water in the same fridge. Yeah, that was like a luxury.
That's not what I had growing up. But listen, we had different kind of blessings. But for me, the privilege was the fact that I got to be in Canada. On the way here, like I think a month before we were coming to Canada, unfortunately, my dad passed away. So
sorry to hear that.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. But those things rewire you. You're no longer in thrival mode. You're not excited. This is survival, baby. Like this is, the Hunger Games, literally in every way. And people say, money doesn't do anything, or you shouldn't chase money. Well, they don't know what it's like to be hungry. And I do know what that's like. And I've seen my mom struggle. I've seen my mom work herself to the bone to provide for us and my family and my sisters. So I never want to identify with that. There is nothing but struggle in that. And this is not, again, like my mom's fault or anything, but it was just the fact that being an immigrant from like Pakistan or India, your credentials don't get recognized. There was no education of well, you have this, at the time, the economy in Canada for buying houses was a lot more affordable, one would say. And we rented for 20 years. My family, like my sisters, for the first time in our lives, we live in a house. Well, I don't, but they live in a house, 3-4 years ago? But for majority of our life, we rented a rundown little apartment, but we made it work. We had a very specific goal in mind that we are not going to stay there forever. But 20 years of fight or flight mode, that's what I identify as immigrant mentality. That's what my immigrant experience was. Lost one parent, so I'm already confused what's happening. And then I always say there's such a distinct difference when you are 7 years old. Your brain is aware enough to know there's something different here. And I always felt the analogy of like, when my dad died, it felt like someone took the shade from me and my back was just exposed to scorching sun. So I'm coming into this country with that mindset. On top of that, I see my mom maybe 2 times a week for like a few hours because she's working or she's heavily involved with her family because she also needs that support. She's grieving and she doesn't know how to grieve. So that's like my experience of being an immigrant is not a pleasant one by any means.
There's no one like you, and there never will be.
From the producer of Bohemian Rhapsody, there are many legends, but there is only one. Michael, rated PG-13, in theaters April 24.
You tell yourself, no one wants your college-era band tees. But on Depop, people are searching for exactly what you've got. You once paid a small fortune for them at merch stands. Now, a teenager who calls them vintage will offer that same small fortune back. Sell them easily on Depop. Just snap a few photos and we'll take care of the rest. Who knew your questionable music taste would be a money-making machine? Your style can make you cash. Start selling on Depop, where taste recognizes taste.
On top of that, the experiences that I've had, not listening to myself and my intuition really showed me what happens when you don't listen to your intuition and your gut. And you stay in that survival mode. You keep repeating the same patterns over and over again.
If you were to give me an example of when you didn't listen to your intuition, how did that lead you on a wrong path?
I definitely should have listened to myself when I felt like I was going to get a divorce a month prior to my wedding. And at the time, I was just so constantly in that kind of like, you're just constantly in shame growing up as a brown girl. I'm the eldest daughter of 3 daughters of an immigrant household, so everything has to be perfect. This is like at the 11th hour. And I was like, I cannot bring shame to my family. I cannot do this. What's going to happen to my sisters? I'm in Canada. Nothing's going to happen to them. They're going to go off and have amazing careers. But in my brain, the only thing I was ever kind of taught was live in fear. So always have the worst case scenario imagined.
If you make a decision, you stick to it. And if you do anything, like you said, that's going to bring shame on the family, like you're just not allowed to feel that way. But before you tell me the story, I didn't know. Wait, so you were about to get married or you did get married?
Mm-hmm.
And when was this?
This would have been 2018. That's when I got married.
Okay, so you got married. How did you meet this person?
So this person, my ex-husband, actually came through a proposal.
Like a rishta, like arranged marriage type of thing?
It's literally a rishta. Good old-fashioned rishta with bio data and everything.
Yeah, you like this one? You like that one? He does this, he does that. Okay, so that whole thing happened. Were you pro arranged marriage, or did you kind of have to say yes because your mom was maybe saying that this is the way we do things, or you were seeing your cousins doing it? Like, what was going through your mind when your mom was like, hey, we know someone that's interested in you?
When that happened, I had already had a lot of shame because actually, I was a bit of a black sheep myself in the beginning. I actually dated my first boyfriend ever. I was 18 years old. He was a Spanish guy. He wasn't brown. And I was like, I don't want to date within the community, Mom. But that didn't go well. And no one ever ceased to remind me of how badly I failed when I went my own way. I'm 18 years old. I don't know anything about myself. I don't really know much about boys. I'm in university and I got told by my mom and my grandmother, date. And so I naturally found who I was attracted to. But I was young. And so I felt a lot of shame for doing things my way. So then I was like, okay, you guys are right. This is my punishment for going against family.
Wait, I have a question. So you were 18, you were dating this guy that your family wasn't accepting of. Did you bring him home? Did you try to bring him home?
I did. My sisters met him, and my sisters are like, they were sweet about it. But my mom vehemently opposed to it. But he appreciated that I was honest and I was real. And we had that kind of relationship because I was terrified of my mom. So I did not want to be caught. I rather let her know from me and bear that. But yeah, that didn't go well as they don't when you're 18 years old.
So did you break up? Because what I want to know is, I had a lot of shame. So what did you have shame for? Just going against not being with someone within your community? And you feel that guilt. I felt it too. It's like, but isn't it, don't you feel like you're in a prison that you can't even live your own life? Like I felt suffocated.
Oh my God. It's like Everything you do is microanalyzed. Meanwhile, my guy cousins dated whoever they wanted. Nobody cared. Like one of my uncles literally married a white girl and she's an amazing aunt. She's amazing and nobody cares. But when I did it, it was such a problem. But me being in Canada, I was like, but I'm raised amidst these people. Why would I do anything different? If my friends are not brown and I resonate with them, why does it matter? But I didn't know that when they said get married, they said get married within the community, within our specific sect of Muslim and Pakistani and things like that. I didn't know that much direction. So I was winging it. But when you're the eldest daughter, you're not allowed to make any mistakes. And unfortunately, it broke up and that was a failure. It wasn't a mistake. It was a failure on my part. That's the way that I was made to feel. And you don't have enough people saying, hey, it's okay. Listen, life happens. Move on. Big deal. Big whoop. Nothing like that. I felt so defeated. I'm like, you know what? If my way didn't work, then I'll try this way. I hate feeling like I'm a terrible person and I'm bringing shame to the family, like all this pressure. So I actually agreed to another rishta prior to that one. That one came at 20 years old and that person was a decade older than me. So I always think, what does a 20-year-old or a 28-year-old have in common with a 20-year-old? I never understood that. But back then my brain thought, oh yeah, he's going to be a provider. He's going to be like, this is good. This is a great match I'm striking. And my family will, they will love it. They will appreciate it. And we had nothing in common. He was raised in the Middle East. I'm raised in Canada. He was the youngest and he came from a family of like brothers that didn't grow up with sisters. And so they don't understand like how girls operate. I feel that's what I feel. It didn't go so well. Every part of me said, I don't like it. I even said to my family and I was like, I don't feel it. And every time I said no, they're like, you're being ungrateful because when you're an immigrant, you better be grateful but for every little thing that comes through those doors, even if that means it's the wrong thing. But hey, that's coming through your door. Be grateful because you don't have anything else. And so I was like, okay, maybe I'm being ungrateful then. Fine, I'll say yes, but I don't really get it. Finally, that broke off, but it didn't break off because I said no. It's because he said no. And that cemented in me that my choices don't really have a value in the community or in family. And that really broke me down as a person. 2 years later I'm 22 years old. My mom gets a phone call from my aunt. Someone says, hey, listen, we've seen Shazmeera, she seems like a nice girl or something like that. And she's young. So I kind of like, what do you like? We'd like to get to know her family. And so my mom just, she picked up the phone and then she closed it and she said, all she said to me, he is studying this at this university and this is where he lives and this is how much money he would make. And in my brain, I'm like, that if mom is saying this, then that means that's what I should focus on. Okay, good. All right. That seems reasonable enough. Of course, none of those things matter down the road, not as much. So I was 22 at the time. And at that time, I was also starting my master's program. So I would have kind of been busy. I would have lived away for a bit. And I remember it was just like 4 months in and we got engaged because there was so much pressure from both sides to be like, if you guys want to meet, if you guys want to talk, you better talk. You better like legalize things, as they say. Get engaged, make something official so you can go out into the community and do whatever you want. At that point, I had 2 failures under my belt. So I was defeated. I was like, brown men don't want me. Non-brown men don't want me. Nobody wants me. Maybe he'll want me. And it sounds so icky to say that today, but that is literally what I felt. I had a really bad eating disorder and I had dropped 40 pounds in a matter of like 4 months. I was a size 00. I had a terrible relationship with food, but I was trying so hard to be that skinny mini girl that you see in Bollywood. And that's literally what my life was to be trained so that men could find me attractive. Men could send a proposal or rishta for me. I purposely made myself disappear physically by reducing to a size 00. And internally, I was so scared to have an opinion because every time I had an opinion, someone shot it down or told me why it was wrong. And what I didn't know was that I'm allowed grace to grow. I'm not even 20, like I'm 24 years old when I get married. Frontal lobe hasn't even fully developed yet. I'm a kid. I'm still developing. But there was no mistakes. And that's why like when you start off at the immigrant mentality of you start at 100%, you hit the ground running. You cannot slow down. You don't make mistakes here. And if you make a mistake, you quickly cover it up. You don't learn.
Believe me when I say I relate to your story so much, because I feel like I see myself being in a very similar upbringing, right? Like I got engaged at 16. It was the same thing. We have a rishta, let's get you married, all of this. And then, was engaged for 3 years. And then when I tried to say no, so much like, you're going to bring shame to our family name. What are people going to think? And then when that finally happened, and, my parents helped me cut it off. When I came to Canada, why are you taking her there? Like, and then every little thing that I did was scrutinized, right? Like if I don't get good grades, oh, this is your fault for taking her to Canada. Oh, if I ended up with someone else, oh, this is your fault. You guys did this, all of that, right? Trust me, I get it. And like, even when you go to every party, I've talked about this before on the podcast. I am so sick and tired of, for a lack of a better word, I've seen it in my culture. Maybe it happens in other cultures too. Why are we so okay to talk about a woman's body? Like, oh, she doesn't look good in that dress today. Oh my God, did you see that? Like why? Like seriously, I hate swearing. Like, shut the fuck up. Mind your own business. Look at yourself. And like, if you care so much about your weight, like, talk to your son that has a beer belly. Like, don't talk to me. I'm getting so heated because I hate when people talk about that. But fast forward, what does your relationship look like now? Because I feel like I've heard you talk about it and you seem very happy and you feel secure with your partner currently. So talk to me about that journey, how it started and where it's at now.
Yeah. So, today my relationship is possibly the healthiest relationship I've ever been in. And I've never seen it. I've never seen a healthy relationship in my life, unfortunately, growing up, or even experienced one in my own way. So, I honestly thought I was going to stay married to my first husband. It was an absolutely awful marriage. It was abusive in every sense of the word. And I thought I was going to raise little kids. I was going to speak the language at home, make biryani, host the big parties, have a loving relationship with my in-laws, kind of like be the belle of the ball, but the Desi version, so to speak. And of course, like that didn't last. So so at 28 years old, that would have been 2022, which was the most awful year, I would say, but also the best year. I ended up getting fired from my job. I bought a condo that then I only got to live in for a few months. I was working 2 jobs at the time, and I really wanted to buy my first property because we never owned one. Unfortunately, in the divorce, I lost it because my ex wouldn't want to settle on it, so I had to give it up. And, I was asked to give all my jewelry back. I felt in every way, in every sense of the word, I was robbed of everything. But those things I can always earn back. But it was like, I felt like I lost for a moment faith in God. I always felt like, God, I had been such a good girl. Like, I'm a star student. I did my master's. I did my undergrad. I made mom proud. I made dad proud. Like, I had all these people that I constantly had to make proud, but I didn't make myself proud. All I saw was someone who I had, lived with for 4 years of my life completely turn into an enemy. Shocked me, shocked my system. Any case, so, I lost my job, and then I lost my home. I lost my relationship. I lost everything in 2022. But I always say rock bottom is sometimes the most stable ground you will ever stand on. Rock bottom will teach you more than mountaintops ever will. And at that point, I realized, what the hell, what did I do to get here? How did everything go down so hard, so fast? My nervous system could not believe it. And at that moment, I said, I'm leaving and I'm going to have to restart. It's scary, but it's much harder to convince myself that this is what I want for the rest of 40 years of my life. I could not convince myself that I wanted to be loved like this for the rest of the 40 years of my life or whatever. So I said, you know what? It seems like both ways I'm lonely. Like anybody who's been in a toxic or sad relationship, abusive relationship, they'll tell you it's not lonely when you're outside of the relationship and you have nobody. Loneliness, real loneliness is when you're in a relationship with someone and they refuse to talk to you, to care for you. They deliberately know what to do because you tell them over and over again. They have ample excuses. So I said to myself, I'm going to leave this person. I waited a little while. I moved in my family's basement. It was hard leaving my luxurious condo that I had worked my entire life. I'd worked 2 years since I could remember. Since I was 16 years old, I worked 2 jobs. And I saved up that money to buy that condo and I had to give it up. But I thought, you know what? Down payment to get rid of this. And I give it as kind of like satka. I don't know what you call that in English. But, and so then I moved out and I was like, you know what? Love is so potent that even after you get your heartbreak, you still crave it. You still go for it again. And I was like, I believe in love because of the way that I loved. No, like the way that I love is the most beautiful way I've ever seen because I love people through some of the worst things that they've ever done. And I also had to kind of fix that, we need to kind of work on that, Shaz. So I did get the therapy, sign on a dating app. This would have been January 2023 and had the best time in my life. I had never had more fun. And there are men that I get to first have a conversation. The fear was never to be too much. The fear was I don't ever want to be too small because when you make yourself digestible, if you try to minimize yourself and you go for that insecure guy, he's going to completely destroy you. Don't go for him. So I went out, I dated, and I dated people based off of values.
You do it all. So why not get all the electrolytes? Hydrate better than water with new Gatorade Lower Sugar. Now with no artificial flavors, sweeteners, or colors. And 75% less sugar than regular Gatorade. New to the fridge, all the Gatorade electrolytes you love. Gatorade Lower Sugar. Is it in you? Now available nationwide.
Were you dating brown men in this process or were you?
I was.
You were?
I
Okay.
did. I started off dating. Yeah, I did.
So how many dates did you go on before you met your current partner?
Quite a bit. I'll be honest. Girl, have fun. Your girl, have fun.
You want to be wine and dine a little bit, and also because when you come from a background where you settled on that first person because you kind of had to, you now need to see okay, what else is out there so I know what I like, what I don't like. So when you met your partner, was he currently going through a divorce?
Yeah, he was. He was also going through a divorce. And I had gone through, I had talked to, and I know your earlier question was about dating brown men. And I actually did. I spoke to them because I said, you know what? I'm not going to let one bad apple spoil it for the bunch. And I actually spoke to a few and one of them was actually a police officer. So I was like, I came from a good family, So I was like, you know what? Let me talk to him. And what I heard was, you're 28, you're old. You can't have kids.
Ew.
Yeah. And I remember I was like, let me take a breather because could it be that my ears deceive me? Did I just hear this from somebody?
And he's probably balding and he thinks 28 is old.
Oh my gosh. It was just so insecure. And I was like, and the way he said it, it just rolled off of his tongue so easy that I'm like, he must have said this to other women. He has definitely said this. And then other guys what I also found some of them having a master's in today's day is not much. Having PhD, definitely, I think is quite an accomplishment. Even master's is, but.
And I know you probably don't feel like this, but immediately if someone says that, let's shut them up because having a master's is a pretty solid deal and you should be very proud of yourself for having that.
The reason I brought that up was that one gentleman, he spoke to me and again, from, the culture, and he said, are you someone who's too smart? Because you got a master's degree. I'm like, what does that mean? Is that a problem that I'm smart? He said, well, no, because I dated a woman who had a PhD. She was asking me all these questions what are my goals in life? What is my this in life? What is that in life? And I felt like she doesn't know how to communicate. She's asking me all these questions. How is she going to be in the kitchen and cooking for me if she's always asking these questions? And at that moment, I was literally shocked that someone would say this, but I was like, maybe, you know what, Shaz, I was like, don't be quick to jump, because we're once you kind of leave a marriage that's kind of like that, you kind of doubt yourself a little bit. So you're like, maybe something's up with me. Maybe I shouldn't be so quick to judge. But I was right. I should have listened to my intuition.
They love to humble you because they know they don't have anything to offer. And they're like, how can I say something to put this other person down? So we've both learned enough that, like, I don't know about you, but I see BS like right away. Like, I can see insecurity through and through. And especially these comments about like, oh, like, you should be in the kitchen, you should be doing this, you should be doing that.
And that's why dating is so important. You need to learn discernment. Do not put your eggs in one basket. Date multiple people. I used to do something called cohort dating, something I just designed, where I actually picked a value that I liked in guys. And for the first week, I would find guys who fix that value. For example, if I found a guy, like if my value is I really like people who are innovative. They come up with creative ways of dating me. So I would talk to guys, find out which ones had that value. They say that they did. And I would date them for that week. The ones who made it to the next round. And that was such a good way of not getting attached, keeping my mind on the relationship that I want, not the person. What I did wrong was marriage and relationships are a lifestyle choice. It's a lifestyle that you want to live. Often we forget to be loyal to the lifestyle and we become loyal to the partner. And we try to fit our lifestyle with that person, and that is never going to win. It never works. You adjust to them. Doing it this way, didn't make it feel like I need to get to a finish line. It broke things down. I got to enjoy. I even came up with a lottery ticket system where I said Valentine's Day came and I said, well, you know what? Whoever gives me the most innovative date, they get to take me out. Then the next person on the next weekend, then the next person on the third weekend. So all of my February was filled. And the best part was I let them know. I let them know that I was dating multiple people. In my opinion, men should always know you have options. You never humble, ever, 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 ever. No matter how nice of a guy is, you never do that, because men have a tendency to box the thing that they know is incredible, because I feel like they like that chase. They like to kind of put the bird in the cage.
And then once they have it, then they like go and find another bird or give another bird more attention. I hadn't heard of this concept of cohort dating, which I think is very fascinating and interesting. And I feel like subconsciously we start to do that as we're swiping, right? But I like that there is language to name it. And something else that you said, I think you're absolutely right. Discernment is so, so, so needed, especially when you're dating. And dating is all about a numbers game. I say that a lot. Like, there should be no shame in you going on multiple dates. Again, be transparent, be communicative. And I hear this term a lot where it's like, sometimes I'll be scrolling on TikTok and I'll see some videos being like, what's wrong with me? I only attract losers. I'm like, no, you attract everyone. You attract good people. You attract losers. You attract mediocre people, but you let the losers stay. That's the problem. So you need to have discernment so you go on a date with everyone and you're like, okay, you can stay because you're great, but you got to go because you're a loser. You don't keep giving the loser more chances. That's why you think you keep attracting losers. Okay, so did you meet your current partner through cohort dating? Like, what about him made him stay for you?
First of all, he was consistent. He was not constant. He was not intense. There was no big promises, big gestures, but he was consistent. Every day for the past, we've been going strong for 2.5 years. At lunchtime, without fail, he will send me a message. He's always the first one to text me, just because I'm not a big phone person. I'm not constantly on my phone to text people. So I just don't do that. But he will text me. So he was consistent. And the second most important green flag of him was that he has a very happy inner child. He has a happy little boy inside him. And one thing that I've learned is that life really is about who you want to stay young with. I don't want to grow older. I already had to grow up fast. I ain't about to do that for the rest of my life. I'm not going to be in my masculine energy doing the planning, the prepping. He took all of that off of my head. And I literally, I kid you not, I became a kid again. I am like 7-year-old Shaz I travel the world. I wear dresses and I frolic through fields. We went to Europe and I didn't plan anything. I have no idea the countries we were going to. He just said, pack your bags, put whatever dress you want. He hit up everything. He planned everything. I traveled once internationally with my ex-husband at the time, which was our honeymoon. That's it. 4 years we never traveled because we didn't have the funds. We made over $200,000 together, but we just never had the funds apparently. And so with someone like my current partner, I needed someone who was going to let me be feminine, let me be a girl, let me be not the eldest daughter, not the eldest sister. I don't want to be a problem solver. I want someone to take that load off of me, say, I got it. And he did that. So he stuck out like a contender.
You needed someone to lead. I'm really happy that you found your person. I'm really curious to hear though. Did you care at all what your parents would think? Or at that point,
Straight up no.
And you know what? I get it. I
didn't care about disappointing my mom because honestly, my mom's disappointed me a lot of times too. And I never felt like, and I don't hold that as resentment against her, but I realized she's a human being. She's someone who's a grieving widow. She's still grieving in many parts. Even today, 20 years after, she's still madly in love with my dad. And I love that. I love that she has that. However, that person could not tell, like, we are so different because I've gone to therapy. I've done so much in my life. My mom is single, not by choice. She's a widow. I'm single and I quote unquote broke my house up by choice, according, to her in many ways. She supports me today, of course, but I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I have I hate to say it, but a man in my life who has kind of like confirmed that was the best choice. But there was a time where it was just me living through life, going through a divorce, and I didn't have the biggest uproar of support. So in that moment, in that time period, I really decentered my mom. And I really decentered authority because being a good girl, following the book, following it to the T, I didn't get anything out of it except I was left broken, and with no community of support. So when I said, I'm going to restart my life, that meant I had to do it by myself and no support was going to be there. So when it came to my mom, every decision I made, I was like, I'm going to let her know when I think she can handle it. Once you decenter your mom or your parent, you really realize that they're humans. They're just people. It's an opinion, not an order. It's a request, not a demand. And you actually see them as like flawed people, but you see them as people. And that's a lot better. You don't take their opinion so personally. So for me, not caring what my mom said worked out incredibly well. And then she actually respected that about me because I don't know, I find that parents for some reason always respect the kid that does things their own way. They may not like them, but they'll respect you. And I wanted to be respected. I didn't care about being a favorite anymore. So she actually developed her own relationship with Jay on her own time, on her own terms, in her own pace, instead of me shoving him down her throat to get approval too quick. And that worked a lot better for them both. And their families met. Like today, we're a family of like Italians, French, and English, and Pakistanis. And there could not be a happier union that I've ever seen personally, because there's so much appreciation versus expectation. You should be doing this. You're the girl side. Here, they're like, oh, thank you. This is amazing. Oh my gosh. There's no hierarchy, which I love.
Yeah. And I think when people right off the bat hear the term, you have to decenter your family or your parents, I think they think it comes across really harsh. But I think what we're not saying, and there's always like that other side. Well, parents know best. They always want to do what's best for you, and they always like want to look out for you. Totally. But we live in different times. We don't live in the same blueprint that they were passed down. And if you really look at if you genuinely ask our parents, were you happy? Are you happy? The answer's not yes. So like, and again, like I have a great relationship with my parents. They did a fantastic job at giving us, everything that they could that was within their means. But there are a lot of decisions in my life that I make on my own. Do I think that it's going to impact them and how it will impact them? But at the end of the day, how is it going to impact me? Because all my parents would want is for me to be happy. It's really hard when it comes to picking a partner because It's hard to turn that switch on and off from always centering your parents to now not centering them. But for example, like very minor details. Like I remember when I first started dating, I would purposely swipe left on someone that had like a half sleeve or tattoos because that wasn't allowed. Right? I would purposely swipe left if they had a career that wasn't familiar with my parents because that wasn't allowed. But you have to date outside of that because you're not doing this to please your parents. You get one life, you have to please yourself, and you have to figure out what works for you. And I think the inner girl in yourself and myself is we just want to feel safe. We want to be taken care of, and we want to have a relationship where we feel seen, heard, and appreciated. And I think in the way that culture tells us to date, it doesn't have any emphasis on that. It's like, oh, how much do they make? What are they doing? It is someone like is an attorney, him being an attorney, gonna like wake up in the middle of the night and like get me my doll because I'm having period cramps? No, or wipe my tears when I'm sad, or know how to comfort me? No, it's pathetic. So I totally agree with decentering anyone else's opinions.
And I also want to say, like, when I said decenter parents, I didn't mean disrespect your parents. My mom calls me when she saw my video. She's like, so like, are we not good? I'm like, Mom, not at all. You need to, if you raise me right, you would have complete trust in my opinions. Any parent who feels like they didn't do a good job, that's when they start to doubt their child. And they know that deep down. But it's natural to kind of think in that binary way because our parents, although many of them are religious, they don't want you to center God if it means they are not going to be the center. As long as they are right there and you are keeping them there, they're fine. But as soon as a kid's like, no, I gotta do what God says, and it's very different from what you're saying, Mom and Dad. They have a problem. You have a problem. You're getting too extreme. You're doing, and there are chances where that could be true. At least those kinds of parents, they don't like it. Because I think to myself, why would a parent who truly loves and cares for their child, wants them to be a good decision maker, strategic person who can survive the difficulties of the world, why would they ever be offended if I said decenter your parents? They would not be offended if I said decenter your children, decenter your husband, decenter men. They're all good for that. But as soon as it comes to them, because it's control.
It's control, and you're right. Like if I went to my mom and like at an earlier age, and I'm like, you know what, decentering men. I don't want to talk to any guy. Yes, good job, beta. Focus on your studies. Hang out with girls. You know what I mean? But the minute you're like, hey, like I'm decentering your opinion, it's not even you're decentering them as a whole. I'm decentering your opinion. I want to shift gears a little bit and I want to talk about your work. I know you talk a lot about decentering parents' opinions, but also you talk a lot about surrounding yourself with confident people, like-minded people. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Something really amazing happens when we surround ourselves with confident women. So me being a confidence coach, this happens literally every single week. I see improvements in my clients. Something really powerful happens is that our nervous system starts to recalibrate. Instead of constantly second guessing yourself. So for example, like our menstrual cycles sync, but our nervous systems also sync up. So instead of constantly second guessing yourself, instead of competing, you begin to normalize clarity, self-trust, and taking up space because you're no longer looking at a vision board or a journal. You're looking at a physical example of what it looks like to have a calm person who trusts herself. When you see another woman speaking her truth, setting boundaries, I speak very boldly. I talk about these things, or walking away from what doesn't serve her, it gives you permission to do the same. And I always say in my mentorship, we borrow a little bit of reassurance from each other. That's okay. That's the whole point of a community. But working with confident women, you realize at the top, we're not competing, we're collaborating. We're uplifting each other. We don't nitpick on things. We don't center men. We don't center our parents, because confidence is something that no one's born with it. It's something that's cultivated. And it's never too late to cultivate it. So that's something that I want every woman out there to know who's listening is that you can absolutely cultivate it after your divorce, during your separation, before your marriage. Do it at any age, but learn this now because it's the faith in yourself. So that, and I always say it in the most crass way, learn to love yourself so you don't become a hater. Don't be a hater. Don't be a hater. Don't do it. You're gonna really pay for it.
No, it truly makes a world of a difference when you surround yourself with people who are genuinely happy for you and they want you to succeed, because they themselves are full within themselves that they don't get happy when someone else is being brought down. So totally, totally agree. If someone right now is listening and they can resonate with your story, or they're finding it really hard to break free from other people's opinions, and they're, there's like this constant voice in their gut and their mind that's telling them to do the things that they want to do, what would you tell them?
So if someone is struggling with their intuition, between listening to their intuition and their fear, and I think we're just kind of doubting ourselves because we're like, I'm not sure, am I being gaslit? I'm not sure, am I actually being crazy? Intuition is your friend. Fear is your bully. Fear yells at you. Fear is ego and is trying to scare you. Intuition says, hey, I'm your best friend. We can do this. We can get out of here. One of the ways that I knew was a telltale sign for me was whenever I thought about leaving that situation, leaving my toxic marriage, I instantly felt lighter. My nervous system calmed down. My blood vessels dilated. I was feeling easier. I was breathing easier. That is your sign that that's what you're supposed to do. Any type of friendship, a relationship with your parent, relationship that's a romantic partner, if you're second guessing yourself and you don't know where you stand with them, that is where you stand with them. That right there is the shakiest ground you will ever be on. And believe you me, the rug will be slipped from underneath you. So in that instance, don't try to see what else you can do to get them to convince. Don't fight. It's okay to fight for someone that you love, but you never fight for someone to love you, ever. It's not worth it.
Wait, say that last part again.
Actually, it's okay to fight for someone that loves you, but it's never okay to fight for someone to love you. That's what I meant to say.
And when it gets to that point, that's when you have to walk away. Okay, Shazmeera, so this has been such a good conversation. I know we're coming up to the end. So my previous guest has left a question for you, which is there anything that has stopped you from bringing the best version of yourself to the ones you love?
Anything that stopped me from bringing the best version of myself to the ones I've loved? Yes. I think the only thing that's ever stopped me was the fear of failing, the fear of disappointing others. And whenever I did that, I always showed up with just ready to fail. It's like almost like my mind was always looking for, I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail. So I filter out, everybody who's a green flag and I look for the red because it just confirmed to me that, yes, I am a failure. Like I'm going to fail them. So I was always just anticipating the worst. And I think the fear of failing has always been scarier than failing. And that idea, that fear, it's always drained me. So what I've done is to do the thing that I'm actually scared of. So if I'm scared of I was scared of talking about my marriage and things like that. I was like, I'm going to talk about it. And I'm a better person for it because I'm not snapping at anybody. All of my anger might be, it was justified, but it was often misdirected. So I think that really, it really healed me.
And I think you're so right. Even when you're getting so anxious and, you're procrastinating a task, it literally takes you 2 minutes. But when you do it, you feel so good about it. And I feel like the only way to, combat anxiety is the action and task itself. What question would you leave for my next guest?
I guess a question that I would leave for your next guest is, how do you know when you're around someone who's confident? What does it feel like? Not what does it look like, but what does it feel like within you? Do you get challenged? Do you get scared? Do you get worried? Because that tells you where you're at.
Totally. I'm excited to ask that one too. If anyone wants to find you on socials and, see your content, where can they find you?
You can find me on TikTok and Instagram. My name is Shazmeera /Confidence Lab, and that's the name of my mentorship. We're all a sisterhood there and would love to have you there if you're ready to take on that step.
I love it. I love the girlhood. Thank you so much for joining me today. I had a great time chatting with you.
Awesome. Thank you. Looking forward to hearing myself and you talk.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Hey, folks, that's today's episode. And my biggest takeaway from this conversation is that doing life on your own terms is both brave and necessary. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to let go of guilt that was never yours to carry. And if there's one thing I hope you take away from this episode, it's that craving and actually living authentically is not selfish. It's essential. And who you surround yourself with absolutely matters. The right people will reflect back your light, not dim it. Thank you so much, Shazmeera, for joining me in such a vulnerable and important conversation. And resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And I will see you next time on Lovely. Lovely is an Immigrantly media production. This episode was produced by Sadia Khan and Shay Yu, written by me, Mahek. Music, sound design, and editing by Lou Raskin. Other music is by Epidemic Sound. Tune in every Friday for more Lovely.